that injured American troops. This is according to a letter obtained by NTD from House Select Committee on China Chairman John Moolenaar. Joining us now is Bradley Thayer, founding member of the Committee on Present Danger, China, and co-author of the book Understanding the China Threat. He's also the Director of China Policy at the Center for Security Policy. Good afternoon, Bradley.
Good afternoon.
Now, what is your concern level here? I want to get this from you. Could commercial satellite imagery be exposing sensitive U.S. military positions to adversaries?
Well, it certainly could. The satellite that was referenced in the report, as well as other Iranian satellites, would be conducting missions to collect intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance of U.S. bases in the region and allied bases as well. So it's alarming, of course, that they have that capability, and certainly those capabilities inform their ability to hit U.S. and allied bases accurately during this conflict. In addition, the other aid that Communist China has provided to Iran is equally alarming. There have been reports, as you noted, that advanced surface-to-air missiles that are man-portable, so-called man-pads, were provided by Communist China to Iran. And there were additional reports that said that China has provided ballistic missile fuel and oxidizer for Iranian. The Communist China provided fuel and oxidizers for Iran's liquid fuel ballistic missiles to attack the U.S. Military and allies in the region. So it's quite alarming.
Now, going back to this letter from Moolenaar, it was a Chinese firm that published detailed satellite images showing U.S. bases, aircraft types, and locations. So is it likely this was the actions of an individual company, or do you think there was a connection to the Chinese state?
Well, it had to be the state. It had to be that this was approved by the Communist Chinese government to aid Iran, as the other forms of assistance that Communist China has provided Iran were certainly done with the approval of the Chinese Communist Party and the state apparatus.
So what vulnerabilities in U.S. national security does this situation expose when it comes to China?
Well, it shows, of course, that Communist China aids U.S. enemies, that Communist China itself is an enemy, and that it aids U.S. enemies, Iran in this instance, who are using those capabilities to kill or wound or thwart the activities of course, U.S. service members in the region. So that compels, to my mind, a response that President Trump must give to President Xi. You referenced, of course, that he wrote the letter that was revealed yesterday to President Xi, and that President Xi has responded. I would expect that President Trump will follow up on this issue when they meet, when Xi Jinping and President Donald Trump meet in mid-May of next month.
Now, do you think that companies like this should cooperate in limiting access to commercial satellite imagery during wartime? I mean, are they obligated to do that?
Well, indeed they should, the commercial satellite networks. And I think we've had cooperation from many based in the United States and elsewhere. But of course, Communist China is opposed to is an enemy of the United States. So they're using, again, with a cutout, saying that it may be the firm which is providing this. But in reality, that just doesn't hold water, given the nature of the Chinese Communist state. So we should expect, again, there has been cooperation. China will thwart that when the U.S. military is involved because of the opposition between Communist China and the United States. It should stop, and President Trump has to raise this issue with Xi Jinping when they meet next month.
Now, with issues like this and in the world in general that we live in now, it seems to be getting harder for the U.S. to keep military operations secret. So what can we do about it?
Well, it's very difficult given the ubiquity now of these satellite companies, but also drones, which are privately owned and which can be flown over U.S. bases, for example, which has been noted that drones have flown over a Barksdale Air Force Base, for example. It becomes very difficult to prevent these types of activities. The U.S. military is adapting to them. The U.S. Navy, Air Force, Army, Marines, and the Space Force, of course, are adapting to deal with these new technologies in warfare. But we have to do the best tool that we have is to hold Communist China accountable when they share this type of information with Iran or other adversaries.
Now, in a similar letter last year, Molinar warned that Airbuses work with Chinese firms linked to military development could risk advancing Beijing's aerospace capability. So talk to us about what these Airbuses are and what are their ties to China.
Well, there are, of course, a variety of aircraft platforms that the Chinese have bought and that they've employed. And so what we need to do in that instance is to call attention to these firms. And if they're not going to change their ways, there have to be penalties for those firms. If they choose to trade with Communist China, there's going to have to be a cost associated with that firm. The U.S. is the largest market, whether that's in the military realm or civilian aerospace, and denying access, for example, if it comes to it, if they will not attenuate or end their trade with Communist China, it's very important for the United States to use the tools at its disposal, the market tools at its disposal, to change the behavior of these firms.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how President Trump addresses this with President Xi when he visited China. Thank you so much, Bradley Thayer.
My pleasure.
The Artemis II astronauts are discussing their landmark lunar